That one's not. Okay, so 7:02, according to the iPhone. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Ms. Villalobos, would you like to do the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Suzanne, can you please take roll call?
Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Trustee Bernal?
Here.
Trustee Shiapari?
Here.
Trustee Levin?
Here.
Trustee Gould?
Here.
Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts the meetings. Okay, report out on closed session. The board met in closed session regarding a conference with real property negotiators and conference with labor negotiation and evaluation. Let's see, no action was taken. Okay, and the approval of the minutes for December 6th, 2017. Okay. Is there a motion to approve, or do you have
a motion to approve the minutes?
Okay, do you have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so request, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Okay. I guess no discussion, so any motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. So, let's see. Communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSEA? Okay, CSEA?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. People wishing to address the board? Okay, correspondence?
None.
Fast. Okay, Superintendent Communications? Any takers?
I can start.
Okay.
Okay, I attended the Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities, which was very interesting. They had members of Sheriff's Department, police, first responders, talking about different ways that San Mateo County is collaborating and working with these different agencies, partially to try to sort of streamline the communication within. So for instance, a school might have a child who has a parole officer, and often, you know, there are all those different layers of privacy. So they're trying to figure out how to streamline that a bit so that privacy and confidentiality is still in place, but there isn't this wait time or lag time. They also had San Diego Sheriff Commander Hank Turner come, and he did a presentation on Camp LEAD, L-E-A-D, in San Mateo County, which is a camp where students from all different areas of a school community would go to this camp and have these interactions with the adults, not realizing many of the adults are from the Sheriff's Department or from different, again, different agencies, and sort of trying to help bridge these ideas between the two groups, not just the students realizing these are people too, but also some of these officers who maybe have become a little jaded, or it was just a very nice collaboration between those two groups. I also did a site visit to Ocean Shore, visiting their school, saw all their auction baskets. This was before the holidays. It's just amazing what our PTOs do for our schools. Attended the PEF Gala, which was lovely. Had the Spark Poetry kids come, and that was really wonderful. I did also just visit Ocean Shore again on Friday for their Martin Luther King Jr. celebration and 5th grade Step Up Day, where they talked with the 5th graders about staying in the school versus leaving and going to maybe IBL for 6th, 7th, 8th. We had our work study, and I also wanted to highlight for the board, which you will probably be getting, our San Mateo County Libraries, our Pacifica Libraries are doing these community conversations, and they are going to have one on education, building the future of America on February 22nd at Sharp Park Library. Sequoia Union High School trustee Alan Sarver will come and talk about the history that has shaped public education and the special challenges that it faces today, which many of us already know about, but it still might be a very interesting thing to attend.
All right, my turn. I've had a lovely break from life, and now back in action, and did the work study last week. Missed my articulation meeting, joint articulation meeting, which hopefully Wendy will be able to report some things out from that. And but we had a good work study and talked about the different information that we brought back from the San Diego, California State School Boards Association meeting, and so back in action.
I have almost nothing to report other than it was a fruitful work study, and heard, we all split up the different sessions that we went to at CSBA, so we all shared what happened there. But other than that, just been working, trying to get back into the swing of things after the break.
I can understand that one. I put my notes down somewhere. Last month, right before the break, I went to the Ortega McTeacher Night, and I went to go volunteer, but there really wasn't anything for me to do. But I hope it was successful. Yeah.
I haven't heard.
But they usually.
Yeah. So it was kind of fun because my son was there, who used to go to Ortega, working while they were having the fundraiser.
Oh, he works there?
He works there now.
Oh my
and he works at
gosh.
McDonald's. So that was one thing, and then let me see where the other one is. Oh, the gala. I ended up going to the gala late because that was the same night as my son's birthday party. Mm-hmm. And so we were down all the way in Fremont, so I came all the way back and got dressed right away. It looked like it was fun. I mean, the short time I was there, we were dancing and nice time. Yeah. Last week I did go to the joint articulation meeting, and there was a lot of information that came out of there. We have a new city manager, Kevin Woodhouse, and he was just saying that they are going to try to identify all of the resources that are near the sea rise areas that we have in Pacifica. So that's kind of big. Mm-hmm. Mike O'Neill, there we were talking about, the new law for marijuana went into effect on January 1st. So he was just updating us on how that's going to work, how they're going to review the applications, and that many little cities around us are waiting to see what happens with our city. But on that note, I just want to kind of make sure that our curriculum that we have is matching the new laws, you know, that we have for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I'm sure it is, but I just wanted to make sure. And there was a lot of other things, like the water prices went up. It's the joint articulation meeting has the water department, city manager, city council, so you get all kinds of information. So maybe Wendy can remember the rest of it.
No, that's good. Kirby, good.
Okay, I also went to the Safe Schools seminar that Kathy was talking about, and it really was interesting to see. It was kind of like, the camp that they were talking about sounded like Challenge Day, but a week-long Challenge Day like they have at IBL. And they also had them there camping overnight so that they didn't have any electronics, which I think was a big thing. So they couldn't get input from their friends at home, stuff like that. There were band winter concerts for, you know, all of the schools, Cabrillo, Valimar, IBL, and Ocean Shores. Those went well. It was our new band director's first concerts. And there were 2 work studies. And then we have January Jazz coming up on the 27th.
Busy. So, after attending the Safe Schools Summit or networking, I did contact Janae Luttrell to see if maybe the North County school districts, Jefferson, Pacifica, Bayshore, Millbrae, Brisbane, could partner, because I think you have to have like 30 students, and they're going to try to bring it to San Mateo County. So hopefully, she said that she would put us on the list to see if there's an opportunity for us to participate and send some of our students. I think that would be a great option for them. Along with the other things that we did in closing out the school for 2018 and then opening back up, we were able to take a 2-week period of time and just close the entire school. And so we just really appreciate that opportunity. I think the employees appreciate that opportunity. And we had very little problems, so we thank the community for supporting us. And just a couple of alarms being set off by employees who forget how to do the code. But it all worked. That's okay. People have to come to work sometimes. But so it was a nice holiday. And the other thing that we did talk about at the joint articulation meeting is we are working with San Mateo County on trying to provide public Wi-Fi in Pacifica. So we've submitted 20 hotspots. We've been working with the city of Pacifica and have looked at maybe even using the Palmetto Corridor, if we could, as an opportunity to kind of pilot it and see how it goes. So we'll keep you posted as to the direction we take there. So exciting opportunities for not only Pacifica School District, but for the city of Pacifica as well. Thank you.
So I have one more announcement from San Mateo County School Boards Association. So they're having a meeting on January 29th. None of us have signed up yet, but we're all.
No.
Did
Yeah.
I didn't. Sorry, I'm spaced out.
I did. I'm signed up.
Are you signed up?
Yeah, they just didn't get us on the list. 'Cause
They just didn't get me on this. Anyway, it's going to be really nice. It looks like a very nice program focused on foster youth, and Shanae Luttrell. So.
Oh, she's going to be there?
Yeah, she's going to present.
Oh.
Okay.
So thanks for signing up.
Okay, for district business, district goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our Agenda Online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information, Board of Trustees. Okay, approval of the 2016-2017 audit report. LCAP operations, Josie.
Okay, thank you. We do have Daniel from Siobhan and Associates here tonight to present the audit report. Thanks for coming. And if you don't mind coming to the podium. Of course.
Okay. Hi, my name is Daniel Gregochea. I'm a senior auditor with Siobhan and Associates. I'm here to present the June 30, 2017 audited financial statements. I will be talking about the government-wide financial statements, fund balance, and the audit results. In terms of the government-wide financial statements, net position as of June 30, 2017 was at $10 million and $14 million as of June 30, 2016. So here we can see that there was a $4 million decrease, which is mainly due to a $5 million increase in net pension liability from $19.5 million as of June 30, 2016 to $24.5 million as of June 30, 2017. In 2017-18, we will be required to implement GASB 75, other post-employment benefits, otherwise known as retiree medical, which the district will record approximately an additional $5 million liability in the government-wide financial statements. With fund balance, we focus on available reserves as a percent of total outgo. As of June 30, 2017, your available reserves as a percent of total outgo was at 11%, and the adopted budget for 2018 noted it as 9%. As of June 30, 2017, the district exceeded the minimum reserve requirement of 3%. On to the audit results. I'm very happy and pleased to report that there are no findings again this year, so that's great. And our opinion of the financial statements is not modified as of June 30, 2017. That concludes my presentation, and I can take any questions you might have at this time. All right, no questions? Good.
I really just want to commend the business office for, I mean, it's a tremendous a lot of work, and we want to make sure that we are fiscally prudent, that we have a wonderful budget that you help us to develop and you approve. And then there's the work of the expenditures and ensuring that we're doing the things in an appropriate manner. And I think Josie and the team on this side of the office does a tremendous job. And so we thank you for keeping us on the right path.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we need to approve the audit report. So do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the audit report.
A second? Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, 10B, Parcel Tax Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Okay, and if you pull up the memo page, Will, the memo shows who's on the parcel tax committee, who the representatives are. The committee did meet in October, and thanks to Richard Zaromsky, who I think you've been on the committee since the very beginning.
Yes.
He is here to present the committee's report from their meeting. Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. And I can't, when I was looking at the report, I can't believe it's been 10 years since we've been doing this, but I've been on it for 10 years. And I think being one of the first people or original members of the committee, I think when they needed a new chairperson, everybody just pointed to me. So here I am, the lucky one, pulled a short straw. No, I don't mind at all. I think I've done this several times over the course of being on the board, and it really is a pleasure to come and be able to show you and show the public what's being done with the parcel tax funds. We don't need to show this report. I can give you a summary of it. Mostly we want to see, do you have the slides?
You also have the actuals. There's two attachments, and there was a typo in the projected amounts. Expenditure actuals.
Expenditures. So, yeah, we can do either one. We can do the projected first. There we go. That's the one. So these are, I think this is the actual. Okay, so these are the actuals. So as everybody knows, and I think we've said this before, the parcel tax was formed as part of the ballot language in both the parcel taxes in 2008 and then again when it was renewed, to have an independent citizen oversight to report back to the public on the use of the parcel tax funds. The committee is made up of 6 members, one from each of the different, or six members that are parents in the district, one from each of the schools. I'm right now the Ocean Shore representative. I've got 2 Ocean Shores eating their dinner in the back over here after school today. And then also 7 members at large, which are members of the community that also look at the parcel tax funds and report back to the public on the use of the funds. The way the process works at the meetings, for those of you who haven't been, is that the board, and actually Josie and a lot of times Wendy, would come and present the proposed expenditures for the next year, for the following fiscal year, plus what's been spent so far. And the parcel tax committee members look at each expenditure and see if they're in line with the parcel tax language. There's specific language in the parcel tax, and it is in the report. Attract and retain teachers, support struggling students by funding counseling, a lot of these different language. But what the parcel tax committee does is go through each separate expenditure and make sure that it is meeting the ballot language so that the people of the city of Pacifica are getting what they voted for. So that's what we do. So as you can see here, and I think that's 2015, 2016, so that should be 2016, 2017, I believe.
Yes.
That is the balance, the rollover balance from the previous year. Then we add that to what should be the 17, 18 funds received, which is about 1.3 million. So the total with the rollover is a little over almost $1.4 million from the parcel tax that was expended this year. So how was it spent? Well, number one, it was spent on teacher salaries. It's funding 9 separate teacher positions at a variety of the schools right now. So that without that parcel tax budget, there was going to be an increased class size. And increased class size, one of the things that people voted, they wanted to have the parcel tax address when they voted for the parcel tax. The next one is teacher support. Again, helping teachers retain qualified teachers was a reason that the board voted, or the committee voted for that. Also to counsel and help develop the counseling program. The parcel tax is instrumental, and that's, I think, 2 people, correct?
Exactly.
That funds 2 persons, 2 counselors that help throughout the district. A library media technician, also helping with building the school programs. Outdoor education, that's a great program. The parcel tax is being used to make sure that every 5th grader in the district goes to outdoor ed. My 5th grader just went this year, and there's no reason for a kid not to go because of financial reasons or otherwise. So every 5th grader gets to go to outdoor ed. Smaller numbers, some of the school gardens, library books, and a math summer program. The last 2, I think it's the last 2 actually, the library books and the math summer program were actually because of some one-time funds that we had remaining, and we're able to, because of, we had actually, I guess, a surplus because property values are going up. This is based on, more people living in the city, there's more people moving in, paying the parcel tax, so we got more money. So that was good for the budget for the parcel tax committee. So you can see there's a very small balance left over. The school district has used all the money, or most of the money, and there will be a little bit of rollover for next year. But again, with the way things are going and property values, you probably have another $1.3 million from the tax to spend next year. So that's my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think you almost answered my question. Do you guys have more firm projections on what's coming in, because housing prices have been going up substantially?
We don't project. Whatever Josie tells us there's available.
That's a pretty good strategy.
But my understanding of just the way the real estate market is that it's projected to grow again next year. So sure. that would assume that we're going to have at least as much as we had this year.
Yeah, we just have to get people to move out, bring more families in with kids.
There you go.
We do have a consulting firm that manages the parcel tax fund and with the assessor's office, and they provide us with a report with projections, and it also depends on senior exemptions.
That's true.
Because, you know, that can fluctuate from year to year. So we get the figures from them for the revenue estimates.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for chairing the committee for so long.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to, you know, we don't meet very often, so looking forward to our next meeting. All right. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we do have a request to address the board for Sue Beckmeyer.
Hello, I'm addressing the board in my capacity as a library media technician. The report that was just given listed library media technicians as one of the line items, and we are very pleased to be a line item as part of the parcel tax. Very grateful for that and very happy to provide the service to our students and teachers that we are able to provide with that source of stable funding. As a result of this allocation by you, the board, your approval of their recommendation and their oversight, everybody working together, we were able to pay for a library media position that was formerly a volunteer position, was not a paid staff position at all. We were able to equalize the funding among those different sites because we had PTOs picking up different amounts, so we had very uneven funding across the district. That allowed us to create some very stable classified positions, which then amazingly allows us to really focus on our library collections and work on improving them and looking at our weeding of our older materials, able to do more work with our cataloging so that we can get more value out of the collection that we have. When we're scrambling just to be able to check the books out to the kids, we aren't able to delve more deeply into the richness of our collection. And Julia Hall is here not in her capacity as a library media technician, but in her capacity as a parent council rep for IBL. However, she does huge yeoman's work at Ortega. Everybody at all of our libraries works very hard, and I just want to let you know that we count on this funding and we look forward to a surplus because it would be awfully nice to have some more funds for library books. Poor Will is besieged at every meeting by the library media technicians. Does it look like there'll be any more funding for books? Because it was really thrilling for us to have the opportunity to have district funding for books for our libraries. Formerly, it's donations, it's our book fairs, and it's our PTOs that have put the books on the shelves. So if we can find a way to maintain and improve our libraries with district funding, it will be a very happy day for all of us. Thank you.
Information. Now 10C, the school accountability report cards. Will?
All right, so the school accountability report cards that you've been able to look over, it is the recommendation that the board approve the school accountability report cards for our 6-7 sites. Are there any questions? Yes. Yes, Captain.
I have a few clarifications.
Sure.
The first one is on the first page where you have just sort of the general information for all the schools, and under internet access, I just felt like I wanted to make the statement. It says access to the internet at libraries and public locations is generally provided on a first-come, first-served basis. And that's a real strong generalization, of course, you know, my ties to the public library, but you actually can reserve a computer and internet time. So it's not really like you walk in and, so I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay. I was actually looking at rewording that.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and so it was going to be Access to the internet at libraries and public locations is generally provided and can be reserved ahead of time on a first come, first served basis.
Perfect, thank you. On the IBL report, I was wondering, there were quite a few, and I guess this is actually for many of these repairs that are showing that they're needed. Some of them there is, well, most of them, there's no comment on when these repairs will happen. So are many of these repairs, are we looking at this year? Are we waiting to see if we get the bond and it'll be dependent on that, or?
Well, any of the repairs that Josie can expand on.
I can kind of expand on that. The repairs that are of any type of safety issue will be addressed immediately. Funding is limited, so we are kind of hoping that for the bond funds before we can make some of the major repairs. And in addition, John will be doing his facilities update. I think it's in an April timeframe board meeting, and we'll be able to kind of give more information on what will be done this school year versus next school year, or this summer versus next summer, depending on funding. You know how we kind of lay out the 2 summers, and we really didn't do much last summer as far as projects. So it is dependent on funding.
Okay, okay. Also, I just wanted to make a comment. I don't know if the rest of the board gets this, but IVLs, they did mention that they put out a monthly newsletter. I'm not getting it. I don't know. Is anyone getting IVLs? Because I'm getting all the other schools. Okay.
So IBL does put out a monthly newsletter, and in fact they put out an update mid-month. So there's actually it's almost more than monthly, but they do put a monthly newsletter out. I checked on this, and I think it's more of the message school messenger that they send it through. We have to make sure that you're all included on that school messenger, because the parents there are getting it, but we just got to make sure that they're inclusive in it.
Okay.
That you guys are included in there. So
because I think this happened last year too, that about halfway through the year I suddenly realized I'm not getting anything from IBL. So okay.
So we'll make note of that and make sure that it's being sent out to everyone that should be getting it.
Great. Yeah. On Ocean Shore, I noticed they're still talking about replacing that play yard structure, and I'm wondering if there's been any movement on that.
That was slated to be done last summer, and we were not able to complete it last summer. So it's on our list. Hopefully this coming summer.
Because weren't they talking about doing something within their school and talking about it with the parents? There was sort of this.
Well, we have our district standards, and our play structure was slated to be upgraded, but then I think there was some additional things and some additional items that, like you said, there was some parent talk, and so we weren't able to finish it this summer, and so hopefully it'll be on next summer's list, depending on what else comes up as far as priorities. But it is on our list of items.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Also, under on the last page, when they talk about academic counselors and other support staff, there's under other, there's one, and I'm wondering what that other is. With IBL? For Ocean Shore.
Oh, for Ocean Shore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I was going to go back and actually look at that section for all of the SARCs and go through, because we want to make sure that other, right next to the other, there's a little parentheses or colon, and then what that position is. Also, too, is in looking at that other, there are some main positions that are not necessarily at the sites, but could be at the sites, like an OT or PT, that would need to be listed on there also. So I'm going to work with the template that we utilize through docu-tracking and see if we can add those pieces in, and then have that piece where the other includes the name. So for that particular one at Ocean Shore, I'm going to have edited so that whatever that other is pertaining to, that it's named out.
So we still don't know.
I'm not sure exactly what
okay.
But I can find out for you.
Okay. This was just a general sort of philosophical question, because as I was going through all of these and they're talking about parent involvement and outreach, I'm wondering if what happens with our school sites where they have county classes and other students from outside that are on our campus. Is there parent outreach to those families?
Yes, anything that's sent out to the community, the school community, is sent either directly out to those parents, or it's sent to the teachers or within those classrooms, and then it's messengered out for them. For there are 2 sites that have county classes that is happening and existing.
So that's happening from district information and that site's PTOs and that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, on the homeschool program, I was wondering for that list of types of services or positions. What happens for our homeschool students, because it doesn't list any of the extra support positions, so what happens if a homeschool student needs those other types of supports, like counseling or some of those other?
Whatever services that they have for a homeschool, they will go to one of the schools and get that services within that school.
And how is that decided?
Usually, I mean, for the most part, from what I understand is, for the most part, if they have, for instance, any kind of IEP or 504 at their homeschool, then it's just dependent on what would be the best location for that service. So the service either will come to them or they will go to the school for the service.
I see. Okay.
And just to clarify, that the homeschool is located, the offices are located at Lindemar. So that's where it's kind of the distribution station, if you want to put it that way, where they would come in, and if there was a service that needed to be provided, they would either go to.
So if the family felt more comfortable meeting at Lindemar, those people would come.
Either come or they would go to,
Okay, great. Sunset Ridges, I was surprised it didn't list a social worker, and I thought that we had a social worker.
I noticed that too, but the social worker is, tell me if I'm off on this, is not actually an employee of the school district.
Correct.
But is contracted out.
Right.
So there is that question, and this is why I need to go through the support, that support section, is because my interpretation of the SARC is that even if it's not an employee, that the service is being provided, that the supports are being provided there, so that it would be listed on there. Now, there is the question, if we put it on there and this gets submitted to the CDE, is it taken into account that these are employees of the district? So there's that question where I'm not sure where we fall. But, I mean, and again, I can look into that, but my feeling is that we list it anyway because they're providing support at that school, and so.
And I think if we don't list those, I think that needs to be spelled out at least to the board. When we're reviewing it. Okay. And then my last question, which it might be more appropriate for when John comes and gives us more in-depth report, but the facility rating system confused me, because when I'm looking at like Valamar's, and they're all good, except for one which is fair, their overall is good. But then I looked at the homeschools, and theirs was fairly poor because the building is old, and they are also listed as good overall. So I just I was confused about how that's figured out. Is it really complex, or?
No, it's not really complex, and honestly, it's been explained to me, and I think John would, to make sure that I'm accurate, but it's something about the fact that if you have enough in the fair and the good section, out of 10, say there's 10 sections, then you are in the good, but if you have not enough of the fair, then you go into the fair, and then if you have too many in the there. So it's some sort of calculation system about the number of goods and fairs and poors that you have. That would determine where they would fall.
Okay, because like.
I mean, they have one poor and one fair.
Right.
All the rest are good. Right? So, you know, I'm not sure if these are even, if the rows here, systems, interior, cleanliness, electrical, are evenly weighted, or if they're differentially weighted. But if you think that a good is a 3, a 2 is fair, and a 1 is a poor, and you score all of these, and then you just kind of take the average, right? The average score. If it's closer to 3, it's going to be good. If it's closer to 2, that's probably how they do it. But I don't know.
It was explained to me there is a simple calculation. The amount of goods and fares that you have, if you get up to that amount, then you're a good overall. So that John would be able to explain. He's the one that explained it. Okay. And it was very simple. For some reason, I still didn't know.
It was too simple.
Okay.
It was too simple.
I think quiz John when he comes and gives the other report. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or discussion? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the school accountability report cards?
I'll motion to approve since I asked so many questions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, 10D, Resolution 2018-01-17-A, calling for full and fair funding of California's public schools. Wendy.
So as a member of the California School Boards Association, we get these requests and information from the association about happenings that are occurring throughout the state. And currently, we are finding in our school districts many having a very difficult time balancing their budget. We're all going into deficit spending. I think in San Mateo County alone, there is maybe 1, if only 2, school districts that is not going into deficit spending. And this is just really not acceptable. And so CSBA has asked if the board would consider passing a resolution that we would be able to send to our state legislators calling for full and fair funding. And so I thought that I will quickly read this because I think there are extremely good points made in this resolution that I think needs to be heard at the state level. Whereas California has the 6th largest economy in the world and the largest gross domestic product, GDP, of any state in the nation, and whereas despite California's leadership in the global economy, the state falls in the nation's bottom quintile on nearly every measure of public K-12 school funding and school staffing. And whereas California ranks 45th nationally in the percentage of taxable income spent on education, 41st in per pupil funding, 45th in pupil teacher ratios, and 48th in pupil staff ratios. And whereas K-12 school funding has not substantially increased on an inflation-adjusted basis for more than a decade. And whereas under the local control funding formula, state funding for K-12 schools has only this year recently returned to levels predating the Great Recession of 2007. And whereas the modest revenue increases since the implementation of LCFF have been eroded by rapidly increasing costs for healthcare, pension, transportation, and utilities. And whereas 58% of California's public school students are eligible for free and reduced price lunch, 13% above the national average, and 23% of California students are English learners, more than twice the national average. And whereas California's investment in public schools is out of alignment with its wealth, its ambitions, its demographics, and the demands of a 21st century education. And whereas in 2007, a bipartisan group of California leaders commissioned a report titled Getting Down to Facts, which stated that it would take an additional $17 billion annually to meet the State Board of Education achievement targets for K-12 schools. And whereas in 2016, a California School Boards Association report, California's Challenge, Adequately Funding Education in the 21st Century, updated the Getting Down to Facts data and determined that adjusting for inflation, an additional $22 billion to $40 billion annually would be required to provide all public school students with access to a high-quality education. And whereas California funds schools at roughly $1,961 per student less than the national average, which translates to approximately $3,462 per student when adjusted for California being a high-cost state. And whereas California trails the average of the top 10 states by almost $7,000 in per pupil funding. And whereas in Robles-Wong versus State of California, a group of plaintiffs led by CSBA argued that California's school funding system violated Article 9 of the state constitution by denying all students access to an education that prepares them for economic security and full participation in our democratic institutions. And whereas the California Supreme Court declined to hear the case by a 4-3 margin, prompting Justice Goodwin H. Liu to write, "It is regrettable that this court, having recognized education as a fundamental right in a landmark decision 45 years ago in Serrano versus Priest, should now decline to address the substantive meaning of that right. And whereas in order to prepare our students for participation in democratic society and an increasingly competitive technology-driven global economy, California must fund schools at a level sufficient to support student success. And whereas despite its vast wealth, California has consistently underfunded public education while widening its scope, adding new requirements, and raising standards without providing appropriate resources to prepare all students for college, career, and civic life. And whereas if California is to close the opportunity and achievement gaps and create a public school system that offers consistently high levels of education, the state must provide schools with the resources to meet the needs of their specific populations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Pacifica School District urges the state legislature to fund California public schools at the national average or higher by the year 2020, and at a level that is equal to or above the average of the top 10 states nationally by 2025, and to maintain at a minimum this level of funding until otherwise decreed. What I appreciate about this resolution, it does give us a timeline, it does give us some goals to work towards, and hopefully our legislators will hear our voices loud and clear.
Okay. Is there any questions or discussion?
The only thing that I have to say is in that last paragraph, the Pacifica School District urges the state. I would like to change it to demands.
That the state, we can do that.
I don't know how anybody else feels, but I'm a little tired of urging. You know, how long do we all have to deal with this state-created nightmare? I think our students deserve better. I think our families deserve better. And you know, we've gone up there, we've gone up to Sacramento for a good 20 plus years urging and pleading and doing the photo ops. I don't know how anyone else feels. If you still want to play nice, I'll play nice, but I'm just a little tired of it.
I agree with Kathy. I think urging has not worked, and they mandate us to do a lot of things without providing funding for those mandates. So I think it's time.
Okay. Everyone agreed on that change?
I totally agree on that change.
Okay.
I've committed my career to doing this work, so I co-authored that report.
Then you have a right to do it.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the resolution with that change to demand, rather than urge? And to approve the rest of it? With the
Motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, all in favor?
Demand.
You demand that one.
Give her the gavel back.
Okay.
All in favor?
Our board,
Oh, yeah.
we
Board
vote?
passes
Yeah.
5-0. Thank you.
Okay. 10E, Integrated Services Update. LCAP Goal number 3, Governance. Ray?
Okay, this presentation focuses on both special education and student services within our district. We will also be providing data tonight around LCAP Goal 3. And presenting with me tonight is Jennifer Gray, our supervisor of our behavior program and related services, and Will Lucy, executive director for our ESS department. Okay.
Oh, I got sticky thinking. Hold on.
Technical difficulties.
All right, go now.
You ready?
Yeah. This is the red one.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Okay, so as I said, we will focus on special education, student services, and data around LCAP Goal 3, as well as gain input. Let's start off with special education. And our district has a foundation based upon full inclusion. This philosophy was put into a board-approved definition 4 years ago, as a matter of fact, January of 2014. Time has flown by. Special education focuses around keeping our district in compliance with state and federal regulations. We also work closely on staffing and the support that our staff needs to implement their instructional environments and support services. And then we also focus on parent outreach and the supports that we provide to our families here in Pacifica and students that are on inter-district transfers with IEPs. We have a variety of programs that I'm very proud to work alongside of and support with the staff. Specifically, classrooms. We have special day classrooms that serve the needs of a variety of students with IEPs. And the programs are Resource Specialist, which is a child that has an IEP but goes to the Resource Specialist, or the Resource Specialist pushes into that child's general education classroom, providing mainly reading intervention or math intervention support. We also provide an extended school year, and this is for the child that the IEP team agrees. And again, IEP stands for Individualized Educational Plan or Program. And the IEP team agrees that maybe there would be regression over the summer, so we provide an extended school year program. It's a 19-day program during the summer break. And then finally, we are very happy to have 2 classrooms located on 2 of our campuses, Valimar and Ingrid B. Lacey School, that are hosted and by the San Mateo County Office of Education for students with IEPs. And these students are made up of students from all over the San Mateo County. that get transported into Pacifica where these classes are located. And then related services are all of the support services that a student may be eligible for to be successful through their instructional day. And they're mentioned there. So this chart describes the number of students we have receiving special education services. And I'd like you to just take note for SDC, which stands for Special Day Class, we are seeing a decline, which will probably have an impact on enrollment and staffing for the 18-19 school year. Other services, speech, SCIA stands for Special Circumstance Instructional Assistant, that's placed in the classroom to support the needs of a child with an IEP. ABA, Jennifer Gray will go in depth on what that program highlights. And then occupational therapy is for OT, physical therapy is for PT, and adaptive PE is APE. So we're seeing numbers that are pretty much trending the same over 3 years. Again, I wanted you to focus on special day class though with the decrease. We have a variety of curriculums that are implemented through our programs. TEACH is a curriculum that is commonly used for our children of autism. And these students have IEPs and could either be in a general ed classroom with support or a more restrictive environment such as a special day class. TEACH really enhances their ability to communicate. The unique learning system goes across all curricular areas and is mainly used within our special day classrooms. Orton-Gillingham is considered the Cadillac model for intervening with students who may have dyslexic needs. And I'm very happy to say that the majority of our resource specialist staff are trained, extensively trained in using Orton-Gillingham, and we will be training 2 more of our resource specialist teachers in March, so that all of our resource staff is trained with this curriculum. This curriculum is highly regarded throughout San Mateo County and the state of California in supporting students with their dyslexic needs. Level literacy intervention is the standard intervention program that we use in our resource specialist classrooms, focusing on the English language arts. And Bridges, our new math curriculum, has an intervention component that our RSP teachers are going to be trained upon this coming month. Okay. We have a highlight tonight, and that's why Jennifer Gray is here. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you
for
for having
being
me.
here. And she's going to share with us what ABA is all about.
Okay. So ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, but I'll probably refer to it as ABA moving forward, if that's okay. A couple common misconceptions about ABA. A lot of times people think of ABA as discrete trials, where a child is sitting with an adult doing lots of trials back and forth over and over until mastery. That's actually not an approach that we even use in Pacifica School District. And discrete trials is really something that's kind of under the larger umbrella of what ABA is. And basically ABA, it just means that a program has these 7 dimensions. And so the 7 dimensions are generalization, meaning that skills or new behavior needs to occur across environments, not just where it was initially taught. It needs to be effective, so interventions are monitored to evaluate the effectiveness and impact on behavior. It needs to be technological, so procedures are described clearly and concisely so that others may implement with accuracy. They need to be applied, meaning that we pick socially significant behavior. They're conceptually systematic. Interventions are based on empirically validated principles of behavior. They're analytic, so we collect a lot of data and make our decisions based on data. And then they're behavioral. So we are looking at behaviors that are observable, that can be measured and then targeted. So staffing, we currently have 1 behaviorist at each school site, with the exception of Valimar, since there's no special day class located at Valimar. school. Each of our behaviorists implement the direct services that are on a student's IEP. And then we also have Nicole Sayers, our lead behaviorist, who's here today. And she helps with consultation across the district. She also works with a couple of the students at Valimar who do have behavioral services. She helps with completing assessments, attending IEPs, writing reports, leading site trainings, and then also addressing those emergency situations that come up in the moment. So for example, recently we've had a few incidences on the bus where a student has acted up on the bus, and then we call Nicole and she very generously comes out at 6:30 or 7 in the morning and helps ride the bus until we can get that behavior under control. So it's those kinds of situations that have been really helpful. And then I supervise the team and finalize the functional behavior assessments and the behavior intervention plans and write the treatment plans and goals for students. We're currently serving 37 students. That changes all the time because we really, when a student comes into our program, our goal is always to move them forward towards independence. So we're often seeing kids come and go. Each of our behaviorists has certification in nonviolent crisis prevention, and lots of them are the team leader at their site. So if there's an emergency behavioral situation, there's always a behaviorist that the team can call on. They also attend bi-monthly staff trainings, and in our staff trainings, we do lots of case studies, role play, and then just studying applied behavior analysis and furthering their training. So the process, first we start off with what's called a functional behavior assessment, and that includes both indirect and direct assessment. And the idea is to get as clear of a picture of a student as possible. This involves interviewing staff, looking at discipline records, also observing and collecting data throughout the school day. And we try to catch a student through every school period and subject, and also to look at behavior over time. And then the amount of time that the behavior assessment takes, it really varies. So for behaviors that occur frequently, it's easier to complete the assessment pretty quickly, but if a behavior only occurs once a week, it's really hard to catch that behavior, and so it might take a little bit more time for us to finalize our assessment report. So then once the functional behavior assessment is completed, we move to the behavior intervention plan, and that clearly outlines a behavior to be targeted for reduction, as well as a replacement behavior to be taught. It also identifies accommodations and modifications that are needed. So basically the first half of the behavior plan is kind of a plan for staff, and then the second half is more of the plan for what we want to teach the students to do. And then comes the actual implementation of the plan, so that's the most important part. And a well-written plan means nothing if not implemented with care and consistency. So in fact, when a plan is developed and implemented inconsistently, it can actually make the behavior worse. So our behavior is most strongly, it's the strongest when it's maintained by what's called intermittent reinforcement. And that means, I'll just give an example of it. So for example, if a baby is crying at the store for candy, and they cry, parent gives candy. They cry, parent gives candy. And then one day, parent stops giving candy. And they do that a couple times. Behavior likely would stop. But if one day the parent is tired and then they decide to give the candy, that's what's called intermittent reinforcement. And then if the child gets it in their head, oh, it didn't work 5 times, but if I do it 10 times, it might work, then that behavior becomes really strong and it's more difficult to break. So consistency is very, very important. And lots of times we write behavior intervention plans and it's not needed for a behaviorist to come into the classroom to implement the plan, but some of them are very complex, or they might be a situation where we really need that extra consistency across the team. And so that's where a behaviorist might come in and help implement the plan. So within every plan is what's called a functionally equivalent replacement behavior. And that's what we focus on while trying to minimize the behavior that we don't want to see. So all behavior has a purpose. Any behavior that you do every day, the behavior that your children has, it all has a purpose. When you brush your teeth in the morning, you brush your teeth possibly because you don't want to lose your teeth or because you don't want, a painful cavity. Your child might brush their teeth for a different reason though. They might not want you to nag them to brush their teeth. They might want the tooth fairy to see that they're doing a good job brushing their teeth. So lots of different reasons why we do the behavior that we do. But we always continue behavior because we're receiving something for it, right? There's always that reward that we receive for using our behavior. So when we look at problem behavior, what we really want to do is stop that reward that's maintaining the behavior and then teach the child a new replacement behavior that gets them that same type of reward. So reward does not mean that we're giving them a piece of candy or we're giving them something that they want, something physical that they want. That might just mean that we're giving them time to be alone. We're giving them a chance to make a choice. We're giving them an opportunity for leadership. So there's lots of different things that might maintain that problem behavior. And if it is a tangible item, we might start there and use that tangible thing as our reinforcement, and then ultimately we try to move it along so that we're really getting to that intrinsic motivation for every student. Because our goal is always for students to find meaning and want to be at school. So some of the benefits of ABA. Ultimately, we want students to be motivated to learn and to be independent and find a sense of belonging and self-worth while at school. We develop our treatment and behavior intervention plans based on pivotal skills that once learned will reach over into other areas of a person's life, such as self-management, empathy development, responding to cues in the environment, how to use functional communication. And then once these foundational skills are developed, we often see an increase in communication, in social interactions. We see broadened interests and improved performance in school. And so for some, that might mean just maintaining learning on a public education campus. That might be a big success for one student. And for another, that might mean having the tools to stay in the general education class and eventually walking during graduation. So really lots of different goals that we have for students. That's it. Any questions?
I just want to emphasize that we're fortunate in our district to have an ABA program internally versus having to source out for this type of service coming in through an agency, a non-public agency. And I just applaud both Jen and Nicole for the support that they give to all the behaviorists at the school sites as well as the students and the staff that are involved in teaching them. It's a strong program, it's a strong model that we've also boasted about and shared with at SELPA and through Administrative Council with the County Office of Education and Special Ed Department. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can I just ask a real quick question? With the behaviorist support, is there any or what is the outreach to families? Because I'm guessing there's probably times there's a correlation between behaviors that are happening at school with what's happening at home. So is there anything besides just like an IEP?
Absolutely. So that's where Nicole and I come in. We don't have the behaviorists do consult with families, but as part of our assessment, we often look at the home environment as well. So we do interviews with families, and sometimes we get a release of information and talk to pediatricians, psychiatrists, and things like that. But on some students' IEPs, we include family consultation as well. So there are several families in the district that Nicole and I We've kind of split up the cases, but we'll do consultation there too. So, or sometimes it's a team approach where we try to arrange for team meetings every once a month or a couple times a year, just depending on the student and family. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on to student services, which includes these 4 areas. But for the purpose of tonight's presentation, I'm going to focus on enrollment and school climate and safety. So in looking at enrollment, current enrollment, give or take a few students, since this graph was made, we're at approximately 3,172 students in Pacifica School District, and that is preschool all the way up to 8th grade. These are our current demographics and the student counts for our ethnicities. And then this is the trend over the past 10 years. And I specifically will, if you want to, there you go, highlight a little bit more. If you look at the trend starting in the 13-14 school year, you'll start to see a decline in enrollment. Now we had a nice bump in 15-16, 50 students, but then the trend came back again with the decline in enrollment, a dramatic decline in 16-17, and that trend has continued since. So with our actions around student services, our focus specifically this year has been around social emotional learning, and our administrative staff and what we call our school crisis teams, which is made up of our school counselors, school psychologists, went through extensive training around the suicide prevention protocol and toolkit and a student threat assessment, which was provided to us by San Mateo County Office of Education and Behavioral Health Recovery Services. And we are also focusing on just looking at the health and welfare of our students district-wide. We've had some bad air days, and so we have a strong communication process now set into place where the school sites are informing us here at the district office, so then we can inform our community of what's happening on those types of days, for example. We also are implementing this year a health requirement for oral health, starting with our kindergartners, where by the end of a child's kindergarten year, the parents need to provide documentation that their child has, their child's oral health has been addressed. Okay. And then we were very fortunate to be involved in scoliosis screening, which is not mandatory, but it's a good practice. And so we are in collaboration now for the next 3 years with Stanford, and they're providing this service for free to us for those targeted students. And then we have some great partnerships formed to support our students. We are working closely with Samtrans because we do have some cohorts of students that take the public transportation to get to and from school, and we just recently joined the Youth Leadership Institution on their transportation coalition just to ensure that that type of transportation is solid, it supports our students, and it's student friendly. We applied for a Healthy Schools grant back in the fall. Unfortunately, we did not get it. That grant was to focus on overall just attendance of students in school, and we were looking at some maker space environment at one of our school sites, but unfortunately that didn't go through. And then we have a very close relationship with PPP, which is Pacifica Prevention Partnership, and we have an upcoming event on Saturday, March 10th, and information is going out through our school sites on the annual Youth and Family Summit, which will be held at Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School. So our focus again is on intervention with SEL, social emotional learning, and we always rely on the tiered approach, which is behind me as well on the screen here. with Tier 1 interventions being commonly used for the majority of our students at school sites. Tier 2 is an intervention that would involve the experts in the field of school psychology, mental health, and so forth. And then Tier 3 might be a more restrictive type of intervention or environment. Social emotional learning focuses around the 5 core competencies, which are displayed here. And we are infusing the Common Core standards in the classroom to support how those competencies can be reinforced daily, because it's our understanding that that consistent daily practice will enhance our students. And now I'm going to switch over to LCAP Goal 3, and Will be reporting on some work that's around that goal.
All right, thank you, Ray. First, I want to direct everyone to the little pies on the bottom there. They're all green, and green is good. So very happy to see that. But as far as relating to LCAP Goal 3, which has to do with student and parent engagement, and then also student positive and safe school climate, the 2 areas that we want to look at, the ones that are arrowed there, and that's chronic absenteeism and suspension rates. So first, looking at, can you click on it? Looking at the suspension rate overall, all of our students, if you look again on the pies, we have all students and English learners are in the green. We do have in the yellow our socioeconomically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. If you go 3 columns over, there's a column that's titled status, and there's a column that's titled change. And the beauty of this, the California dashboard, is that you have a status score where it's a level where your students are at, and right now they're at 1.6% suspension rate. That's where they're at. That's their rate. And then you also have the change, meaning how they did compared to the year before, which was it's gone from the year before, they've gone down 0.6%. So for the suspension rates, you want to see a decline. You want to see a gradual or hopefully a drastic decline in suspensions. So again, they're at a medium status, but they're at a decline. So they declined from the previous year, and that's the same thing with the English learners, the socioeconomically disadvantaged, and the students with disabilities. All of them are at a decline, or with the English learners, they're at a maintain, because it's a 0.1% increase for the overall. So this is the same thing, but with the ethnicity subgroups. So, and if you again direct your attention to the pies, you can kind of get an idea of where these different subgroups are. We do have a subgroup that doesn't have a pie, and that's the American Indian, and that's because the sample size, or the number of students within that, is below 30. And for the California dashboard, for any of the dashboard data, if you're below 30, you don't get a pie because it's too small of a size, and if you're below 11, you don't even get a score, like a score. There is, and we don't have it up here. There is a detailed report that you can click on. It gives you the actual raw numbers, so you would be able to look at it there, but it wouldn't give you a score because of the sample size of that population. So if you look at again at the status, which is the last 2 columns, again you're looking at a very high. You have a low, very low, medium, high. If you go down there, you can go across. But if you look at the next line over, you see that there's decline significantly, decline, maintain. There's an increase with the 2 or more races, someone read that, 0.7%. But most of them are declined. So for suspension rates, we've done as a district-wide, we've done very well. Okay, and then this is the other part of Goal 3, which has to do with climate engagement, and we've been very fortunate to use panorama surveys to help us not only establish some baselines for that in our LCAP, but also to be able to see specifically how our students' perception of their safety and their connectedness to school, how they feel themselves about being safe and how connected they are to schools, and also with our staff on their feelings of the school climate and culture, and our families, their feeling of the climate and cultures. So listed there. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're making me go quicker than. Just to kind of clarify and put this in context, we give these surveys out. We're beginning to give these surveys out. We started giving. We attempted a parent survey through Panorama last spring, and that was a parent and family guardian survey. We didn't get a huge response rate. I think we got 24% response rate from families, which Panorama apparently said was phenomenal, but I don't think it was phenomenal. But we're hoping to get it much better this year when we give it out in the spring. But we did give a family survey, and then this year we just gave a student survey. We just got the results back from the student survey, so we were able to get. We were able to survey the students not only on the climate and culture for our 6th through 8th and our 3rd through 5th, but also we had a survey. Part of our survey was on the social emotional learning for our 3rd through 5th and 6th through 8th. And then we are next week will be the window for our staff climate survey. The exciting thing about this is we're giving them out this year, but we'll also be giving them out again next year. So we'll be able to now have a baseline, and then within our LCAP be able to see if we're showing progress within that. And again, this is all about perception of. So students' perception of, parents' perception of, staff perception of. So this is our survey that we gave last year. And I said 24, but it was actually our score there for for questions relating to parent engagement and decision making for our families. 37% of the families scored favorably. Their score was had favorable responses. And so you look at that, 37%, right? But this same survey was given out nationally to a number of different districts across the country, and we were at the 80th percentile there. And so with this little hump there, the little green hump there, is most of the favorable responses from the other districts that were involved, or from all the districts, were more at the 10% range. So that's why, even though there's a low or seemingly low percentage of favorable responses from our parents, we were at the 80th percentile towards that. So that's what that shows. This one is the survey findings for student safety, and this is through our 3rd through 5th. And again, it's the same kind of graph there, and it shows where most of the districts across the country fell. And we were at we scored 70% of our respondents scored favorably, or our students answered the questions favorably relating to student safety, and that would put us at the 90th percentile. Right? 90th percentile. I'm having trouble reading that. So that was student safety, and this is our 6th through 8th, and 65% answered the question favorably regarding school safety. But this put us at the 40th percentile. So we can see that we need to have some growth there. School connectivity, same idea, 81% answered favorably, and put us at the 50th percentile nationally.
Grades 3 through 5.
Grades 3 through 5, thank you. And in 6 through 8, 69% answered the questions favorably, and put us at the 80th percentile.
Thanks, Will. So in concluding student services, we definitely have next steps of actions that we're taking, and as Will said, we'll continue facilitating the Panorama surveys with all of our stakeholders in the district. When we get the data, we definitely look at it with key stakeholders on our teams at the school sites. For example, our vice principals and assistant principals, Will and I will be meeting with them on Monday, and one of the things that we do is look at current suspensions, who is getting suspended, and what are the alternatives to suspension for targeted students. So those discussions happen routinely throughout the school year, and I think that's attributed to the success of our continual decline in suspensions in Pacifica School District. Yes, we were trained on the suicide toolkit and threat assessment, but how are we implementing that? And that is continued discussion with our crisis teams and our site administration. At our last leadership council, we discussed what are the norms of how we facilitate that process. Making sure that through our social emotional learning that there is the explicit teaching of the core standards, as I mentioned earlier. And we're so excited, we just started this month using Star Vista through a grant that was provided by the Pacifica Prevention Partnership for a program that we designed with them for an alternative to suspension. And I can say that we have 2 successful cases so far. Where we've avoided a suspension of a student, and we've been able to have them participate with that level of support that they need for the choices that they've made. So thank you for sitting through this presentation. And if you have any other questions or any comments?
So
Andrea.
just to make sure we're clear here, when we have an alternative to suspension, that means students are staying in class?
Yeah, in the regular class, and we have an alternative outside of the school day, or what is the alternative?
So it just depends on when the appointment time is made, but Star Vista definitely tries to make the appointments to see the students after the instructional day. Yeah. And their main focus would be, their intervention would be on counseling support, on whatever that behavior is that needs to be addressed.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the families are involved.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and families are involved in the initial stages of that process. And if Star Vista feels that there may be support needed after the first time there, and the family agrees to it, they will provide that, which is just really wonderful partnership that we've developed with them.
I think that just sounds great, just because my family's involved in Star Vista and seeing positive results from that. So
Yes.
I'm really glad that there's a partnership there.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I have to say that all of our leadership on our school sites are so appreciative of this alternative.
Is that completely on a grant, or is there any cost to the families?
It is on a grant that is provided through Pacifica Prevention Partnership for those services.
2 quick questions. On the suicide prevention protocol that's listed under professional development, do we have any component, like in our health curriculum, do we address suicide with our students?
There is a small portion in the curriculum that focuses on that. What the suicide protocol and prevention of is more so professional development on the awareness of, like how to make it not happen, how to be a proactive member on staff so that it doesn't happen. What are those initial signs that we see?
Right. I'm just thinking that sometimes students know things before the adults. So I was just wondering if we do any kind of outreach to the students to sort of.
Yeah, and again, it is in there. It's under social responsibility when you see signs of a peer in need. I don't believe, though, it uses the specific word suicide.
Okay. And then on the parent engagement results on page 27, I understand that, you know, our score is in the 80th percentile nationally or whatever, but 37% is still rather low. I'm wondering, in the survey, is there a place for the parents to say why they're dissatisfied or not satisfied? I mean, is there anything we can pull out of this to understand where the issues lie?
Well, the questions themselves are, they have to answer it, you know, always, sometimes, you know, that
Okay.
type of thing. So the criteria of what a positive response is versus negative responses, as you can tell by they're more geared towards, you have to be very positive for you to get your percentage to be higher. That's one thing. Second thing, there isn't a box where they can actually write in things. Now, that is something that with Panorama, I'm on calls with them about the surveys after the results, after it's been, the cabinet's looked at it, after the LC has looked at it, after the results. I'm constantly getting feedback and I'm sharing it with them. So there is flexibility in adding questions to it. What we're trying to be very careful with is not changing the base of the survey because it's nationally normed. So if you take or even adjust or put a text box in the middle and change that benchmark for that, so it couldn't be compared nationally. So, but there is some flexibility of adding. So like, okay, this base of the survey gives this percentage. Now here are an additional questions that basically ask, tell us your thoughts about this, or a little more open-ended.
Okay.
So they have done that, or they have that ability to do that, to open up those.
But I think that the question is around, maybe if we look at the items and we see how the responses are, can we see whether there are some key things that we could work on, and that's what we would put in our LCAP.
Because just getting the score is one thing, but then what do you do with it? So if we have some kind of
So
idea.
Like more of a question and question analysis. Breaking down question analysis. So which questions were they scoring in a level where they were, across the board, it seemed like, I understand, I can see what you're saying there. And there is that ability to, because these reports break it down by student, or, they can't break it down by the parents because the parents, they don't identify with the parents, but with the students, when they can break it down by students, and they can also break it down by questions, what particular questions were answered in a certain way.
So we'd have to do an analysis. And then we'll be going to, is that the one you're going to do in Menlo Park?
Menlo Park, yeah. I got an exciting opportunity just today, really, to join Menlo Park. They're having Panorama go out, and they're meeting with all the counselors in that school district, and they're talking about how to look at the data to analyze it, but also what's the next steps? What are things that they can build into their plans? So it's going to be interesting and exciting to see how that. And I'm hoping to bring actually a couple more of our staff with them. The superintendent over there has been very nice to say, bring as many as you want, just to watch how that works. So that's exciting. That'll be a good learning point for us to bring back and say, okay, how do we break this down? How do we, are we analyzing the right way, and what are our next steps?
So we'll take a look at that.
So I just have a couple of short questions. One of the questions that I had was, do we have any explanation for why there were enrollment dips in third and fourth grades? And was there something that happened back in 2012 and 2013 because it's just so noticeable that we took hits in terms of enrollment amongst
Nothing in the data that was blatant, that showed any significant reason why.
It's just very strange. Then another question that I had is thank you. I have a kindergartner, and we got the memo requiring a oral health assessment. I'm not really sure how. I mean, we were just going to take him to our dentist, right? Are there any accommodations for families that don't have dental insurance?
Most definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, and that information has gone out, and the school sites have been able to help us identify which families are in need.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And
so just a comment about that. We do have to deal with Medi-Cal for our foster child's dental, and that is just the worst dental you could ever have to use. So I'm not saying, you know, I'm saying that that's great that we're helping out with dental, but I hope it's not just access to Medi-Cal, because you've had.
It's terrible. I mean, I've heard my own son screaming from the back.
Yeah, because they're not good dentists, and they're hard to get to anyway, and then there's, you know, hard to make appointments and everything, and, but, yeah.
So is it just
It's
a
not
referral?
just Medi-Cal referrals.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have one more comment on the suspensions. The ethnicity, like the American Indian, having 8 in the district, you know, and any other ethnic group, I don't want them to get lost or fall through the cracks. So let's say 2 American Indian children get suspended. That would just, you know, go through the ceiling as far as the suspension rate.
Right.
So how can we monitor those people who are not on the reports?
Sure. So that's on that state report. We're able to monitor it internally through Synergy, our systems information system. And we know exactly the ethnicity of the child if and when a child does get suspended.
And then how would that information get delivered to the board?
Well, that would be in a suspension report that I would do that would disaggregate out the ethnic data.
So your reports would be more, not just what we're doing with the dashboard?
Correct.
But adding in?
Correct.
Okay.
So I think another area which is really murky is the 2 or more races, because we can't tell who's in there, yet they're really the only group that increased, right? And they're at a medium level, and then an increase in the change. So you're probably going to want to look into that and see who those people are. And remember, there's overlap also between the other characteristics, the socioeconomic disadvantaged, EL, and these. So you might want to cross those.
Definitely.
And see what's going on there.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have a system that allows us to identify each child by name, grade, school location, and then that's how Will and I work with the assistant principals and vice principals in developing a plan for those targeted students to get away from the suspension of and look at the alternatives.
And is Data Zone going to kind of help you with this as well?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
thank you,
so
Ray. Okay, 10F, 2017-2019 Facilities Plan, Needs Analysis, LCAP Operations. Josie?
Okay, we're bringing forward tonight a draft of the Facilities Plan Needs Analysis, which the district office and the site staff have been working on throughout the year, trying to identify, do needs assessments at all the sites, and also areas for improvement. Of course, it is all dependent on funding, and so we've been working hard to prepare this document in the event that we have a bond measure in June. So this is a draft. I did receive some feedback. There's, you know, some typos and some areas that we're going to work on. One of the areas that we're continually updating is the Audited section in the document, because, you know, we've had many discussions with the board about the direction of Audited, and so it's on page 14 where it's, you know, we're working on developing workforce housing. You know, we're still exploring all the various options. So this will be updated as we move forward. It is also has a list of preliminary potential projects. This was an in-house document, and so, you know, if the bond measure moves forward, we'll be able to hire a consultant who can do a formal facilities master plan, and that would be more robust and have much more detailed information, and that's when we would engage consultants and, you know, the roofing consultants and such, so that we could get the actual costs. These costs are all very, very much estimates at this time. So, you know, it's in draft form. We'll continue to work on it, and I don't know if the board has questions or comments or additions to the plan at this time.
I'm just wondering if a member of the community has a question about the in-house report, how do we get that information out to the public?
If a community member has a question about the report, how do we get it out to the public? We continually update it based on questions and feedback, but it's not, I don't know how we could.
I think it would depend on what it is, what
Yeah.
the question is. Like, depending on the type of feedback we get, because this is the first facilities plan, we don't really have one. We could start with the Q&A, a question that somebody asks and this is what the answer is, kind of thing. That has been helpful. So it depends upon what kind of traction this plan gets. And then hopefully, should we move forward with the bond and we're able to really do a robust master plan, I think you'll see how it's pretty self-explanatory. Or what consultants do is they will go out to the community. We did our best to get a general input and talk to the principals, and the principals took to PTO and brought it back. So we did a very generic kind of thing, but they will definitely go to the schools and have those talks, etc., if you pick the right consultant. So hopefully by the time we do communication and everything, it'll be a pretty strong plan that supports people's perceptions and needs.
And the communications next month, or is it March? Or the public?
We hire a consultant for the facilities plan?
Yeah, that would only occur, my suggestion would be if a bond passes, because you will have then a sizable amount of money that you will want to make sure you prioritize and make your projects viable, that the community can support as well.
So my only question flipping through this, and I haven't read it really carefully, was I was very interested in the demographic study, and I've never been through a facilities plan before, and wondering, the demographics here are just county population estimates, and we're a part of the county, and the trends here might really deviate very differently from the county. So is it regular in these types of studies to have a demographic analysis that's more granular, or do you know if that's possible or not?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, because if we're making decisions, I'm wondering.
Right.
We're fairly large county.
Yes.
Right,
and we're a small part of that, so that is something for us to look into. That's a good point.
Okay, because I can see this is low hanging fruit. You can get the numbers very easily, but there might be other ways to get numbers that are a bit more granular.
Yes.
So when you select the consultant, you make sure and ask that question.
Okay.
Because do they do that? Is that one of those services that they offer? Because I believe the demographic study is simply because you want to look at, do you have enough facilities for classroom space?
Absolutely.
So that's usually what they do in a master plan.
Yep.
But it depends on who you select, right?
Yeah, the question is, if there's a big population boom over the hill, right, that could really throw our decisions off quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we do it in our district in a very unscientific manner. We talk to Mothers Club. I look to see what kind of houses are being built. That's what our TIC meeting kind of.
But that can be more accurate.
Exactly.
Even if it's less scientific. Right?
Yeah.
So it could be more accurate.
So everybody's saying they're coming, so I'm excited. I said, okay, we're ready. But right now, as I looked into our classroom numbers or spaces, I think we'll be fine for the next few years, so we don't have to worry. There's enough space in our schools to handle additional student populations.
Yes. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the facilities plan and needs analysis?
A motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
This is still in draft form, right?
Well, it's draft because it needs an action. Once you approve it, we'll take draft off.
Yeah, okay.
With minor revisions.
Yeah.
But it's a living document.
Yes.
Right, so I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, number 11, the board bylaws, board policies, and administrative regulations. October 2017 manual maintenance 6000 series first reading. Well, we're going to be doing this a little differently.
Yeah.
From now on.
How are we doing
He's
it
ready.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through them because, so that we can, and I'll be able to talk about some revisions that have made since you first reviewed them. Some revisions that are made. So what I have up there is the,
Do you want to start with start with BP 6020, then when you hit the one for the memo, then you can.
okay.
I think that'll be easier.
So BP 620, parent involvement, use CSBA sample with revisions. BP 620, parent involvement, oh no, I'm sorry, AR 620, parent involvement, use CSBA sample as is.
But did you make a change on that one?
620?
The sample?
No, not the.
Of the AR?
Not the ARs. I can.
No.
Nope, okay. AR 6112, school day, use USDA sample with revisions. BP 6153, school-sponsored trips, use CSBA sample with revisions. I did make a following edit. The following line was edited to include what is underlined. The principal, and this is the part that was edited, taking into consideration many factors including but not limited to the perspective of parents, guardians, and staff, may exclude from the trip any student presents on the trip whose presence on the trip poses a safety or disciplinary risk. So that was changed. That underlined part was changed. BP 6170.1, transitional kindergarten, use CSBA sample as is. AR 6173.1, education for foster youth, use CSB sample with revisions. And on that one, the following was deleted as it pertains to high school. C, if the court, this is what was deleted. If the court's jurisdiction is terminated while the student is in high school, the student may continue his or her school of origin until she graduates. So that pertains to high school, us being a K school district. It didn't pertain to us. BP 6173.2, education of children of military families, use CSBA sample as is. AR 6173.2, education of children of military families, use CSBA sample with revisions. The following was added. The superintendent or designee may grant additional excused absences to students to visit with his/her parent guardian who is on leave from or is immediately returning from deployment to any military posts.
So, well, it says return, it doesn't say returning? Or is immediately returned?
Oh, immediately returned from deployment to any.
So you could say has immediately returned.
Yeah.
But anyway, just a small language.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Either way. Could we just go back to 6153? I just have one suggestion on that one.
6153, okay.
Yeah, the BP 6153. It's the first one that you made a change on.
Yes.
So in the last clause of that, it really says would pose a safety or disciplinary risk, and that to me that sounds like there's kind of a conclusive decision. It makes it sound like fact, where this is truly just perspective. So I personally would change that to deemed on the trip. Let's see, something whose presence on the trip it is deemed to pose a safety or disciplinary risk. Because you're talking about perspectives, including, not limited to, but it's a little bit more powerful. It gives, I could just see saying, use that thing would. Would is a bit subjective, right? And it is subjective, but we want to put it at the discretion of the principal, right? So if they deem it, I could just see somebody fighting, saying, "Listen, I can prove my son or daughter did not pose a threat." You're saying they did pose a threat, and if you just say if they're deemed to, it gives you a little more power to say, "Listen, it felt like it," right? I don't know. So this is a touchy one. This is a really touchy one.
So why do we add the underline?
We added the underline because the thought was that we want the principal to have the discretion to exclude a student from a school-sponsored field trip because there are situations where a student may even have started to go on the trip, and because a safety issue has occurred because of the student, or a disciplinary issue has occurred because of the student, that there would be a need for the safety of the rest of the students or the safety of that student themselves for them to be removed from the field trip. So we want the principal to have that discretionary to make that decision, while at the same time, we do not want a principal to say, "I don't think this person should go because I think that they might cause a problem," or a teacher, which I don't think any teacher would do this, but they would say, "Well, I'm going to go on this field trip, but this one student can't go because I think that I don't know if I'll be able to handle them on this field trip." So we want to be able to balance those two. So to allow the principal or administration to have those conversations with the staff when they are planning a field trip, to be inclusive of all the students in the classroom, while at the same time have the principal or administration have that ability to, if there is a safety issue that occurs, that they feel that it needs to be, that the student needs to be removed, even after a plan has been put in place to be inclusive of that student in the trip.
But this is also really more powerful, that this necessarily includes the perspectives of the parent.
Right. We want to be inclusive.
So this is rather powerful. I mean, this is saying you have to include it. It's not saying that you can't also draw on other perspectives, but it has to have the parent, guardian, or staff.
You want the principal, and being a former principal myself, a field trip request comes to your desk and you say, and the teacher says, "Well, I don't think these two students or these three students should go because I think it's a safety risk or a disciplinary risk." You want to have a conversation with them to put a plan together so that they can have that experience on that trip. Yet at the same time, if they're going on the trip and if something does happen, you want to have to, you don't want to be caught where the principal says, "Why did you exclude my child from the trip?" Well, this happened right on the trip, and I'm not excluding them, but I deemed it unsafe. Now I'm using the word deemed. So it's really kind of tricky because you want to be able to balance it. You want to be inclusive, but at the same time you want to be able to.
How does the underlined part actually add any? I mean, like you could do the part underlined without the underlined in there. When you say may exclude from the trip, any student whose presence on the trip would pose a safety or disciplinary risk. That would include everything in the underline. We're putting it in there to make a point, I think.
Well, we're putting in
that we want perspective of the parents, guardians, and staff.
Yeah. You're putting in there to make sure that there's a process before you decide if a student should go and should not go on a trip.
So, but when I read it, I thought, boy, this could get you on due process. You know, like this feels like a statement that somebody could argue, I didn't get my due process because you didn't look at the perspectives of everybody. Somehow it just kind of sung out to me that the next step that the parent would go, didn't do due process, my kid's got to go. And did this language pass the lawyers?
Yeah, we shared it with.
If it passes the lawyers and they don't think it's something that's going to be used against us, then I'm okay with it. But somehow it just kind of sang to me as, sometimes when you put in too many words, you start limiting yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we're not putting in so many words that we're really tying our hands in some way.
You're right, and I think that was kind of our concern, and yet we just couldn't think of any time we would exclude a student without having at least had a phone conversation or something, or the teacher has had that conversation with the parent, and it becomes kind of a joint decision. And sometimes, they're not happy with it, but we have to think of the safety, so we'll take it into perspective, but it doesn't mean they get to determine. The principal gets to determine that.
It was a very tricky thing because we were saying in consultation, but in consultation means there's an agreement between the parent and the principal.
Yeah.
In consideration means that the parent should say, I think that this, get their input, but not necessarily go with, So, I agree with you. It's very tricky. But it passed pretty good.
Okay. That's the most important part.
So, those except, I'll add that deemed to pose. I'll make sure I make that adjustment to it.
So where is that going? Because I know we have second read, but
Instead of would, replace the would.
Instead of
the trip would deem to pose on the trip
is deemed
to pose. Okay.
That makes sense.
I'm glad I'm not a lawyer.
All right, 11B, 5,000 series, first reading, right?
Okay. All of the policies that were reviewed by the board, there were no changes made after you reviewed. Just so you know that up front when you start going through. So BP 5113.1, chronic absence and truancy, recommended to use the CSBA sample as is. And then moving on to AR 5113.1, chronic absence and truancy, it's to use the CSBA sample with revisions. I do want to note with this AR, when the board reviewed, there was a board member that asked if we in fact did utilize item number 7, which is on page 5 of this AR. Item number 7 is stated, it is recommended that the parent guardian accompany the student to school and attend classes with the student for 1 day. In some extreme cases of chronic absenteeism and truancy, we have suggested to parents to do this, and in those few cases, every parent has agreed. And we've seen success with that. So that does happen, but I want to emphasize that's in extreme situations. And then this is a CSBA sample with revisions, and we deleted also on page 5 item number 6. because it states the student may be subject to suspension, restriction, or delay of his or her driving privilege. Our students don't drive yet, or at least we hope they're not because they don't have a license. And then we also deleted on page 5, item C, the student may be required to attend makeup classes on one day of a weekend. We do not have that, those type of makeup classes in Pacifica School District at this time. Okay, moving on to attachment D, BP, fee 5117, interdistrict attendance. Using this sample, CSBA sample with revisions. And the revision is on page 5. We included the language at the bottom of page 5 of this BP.
So Ray, if they've read it and you said there were no changes after, so if they don't have any questions, we
We're
can
good
just
to go?
we can move to the next one.
Okay. So, we're done with that one. AR 5117, interdistrict transfer, use CSBA sample with revisions. AR 5125.2, withholding grades, diploma, or transcripts, use CSBA sample as is. BP 5131.6, alcohol and other drugs, use CSBA sample with revisions. And Exhibit 5131.63, steroids, Pacifica School District is recommending to delete this per CSBA recommendation. Okay.
All right, 12, future agenda items.
No changes except on March 7th. I'm going to be adding a resolution, hopefully, for the bond measure to determine whether you would like to place it.
You have a pen.
Okay. All right.
Clerk without a pen.
The meeting is adjourned at 9:02.